Let's take a brief overview of the various agents of political socialization. This list is by no means complete and comprehensive, but it does give you a decent overview to understanding the process of political socialization. In short, political socialization is a lifelong process. It can be defined, and it is by our authors, as the process through which individuals acquire their beliefs and values about the political world. And that includes you and I. There are agents of political socialization. These are the factors. These are the sources of training, of influence, of indoctrination that shape our political beliefs. And this is a lifelong process. Political socialization is lifelong. Your beliefs as a young person may not be the same as your beliefs and values as a middle-aged person or as a much older person. Our author rightly points out that the family is the first and perhaps most powerful and most long-lasting source of political socialization. Think about it. Our parents, our aunts, our uncles, our grandparents, we absorb quite a bit from our own family at a very young age. Political science tells us that children are very likely to adopt the political values, beliefs, and attitudes that come from their parents. Although that is not necessarily a guarantee. The Simpsons is a great example of this. You have Bart Simpson, who tends to adopt the mannerisms of his father, Homer, but Lisa Simpson certainly does very much quite the opposite. If anything, Lisa Simpson has more in common with her mother, Marge Simpson. But TV entertainment aside, think of the influence and attitudes and beliefs that you may have picked up just from being around a family member. A close number two, because it can also happen at a very young and impressionable age, is friends. Friends are an agent of political socialization. Think back to your youth. Think about the times your friends said something or exposed you to an idea that you were unfamiliar with. Maybe even right now, maybe you have a very politically active friend that is introducing you to new ideas, a system of beliefs that you might not have had before. Or maybe you are influencing a friend in terms of their political attitudes and beliefs. Maybe it's just a discussion. How many of you have had intense political discussions with friends in person and online? They are definitely an agent of political socialization. Of course, the schools you went to, and even right here at Delaware County Community College, we can see political socialization happening from the very young age. The reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning in the school classroom, to your professors that offer critical thinking, provocative questions, thought-provoking discussions. These are all agents of political socializations. Maybe some of you view your professors as an authority on a matter and might be inclined to adopt the beliefs that that professor has or the perspective that that professor has. Or maybe you'll hear something in the classroom from an authority on education or a professor that you find so incredibly ridiculous that you adopt a very different view. Both happen on a daily basis at the college and university. That said, educators are influential. It's something that I, as your teacher, am aware of myself. And for that reason, with that very awareness, I do my best to make a conscious effort to present the material in a balanced way that reflects different perspectives and considers different viewpoints. I hope not to disappoint you. The next agent of political socialization to consider, and this overlaps with friends, is social networks. Peer groups, your place of business, your work, your school, your church, your clubs, a teachers union, that's the example I have featured here. A person tends to be influenced by what, quote, people like me think, and that I'm reading directly out of page 90 in your textbook. Organizations, groups bring ideas into somebody's life that can influence and alter their political socialization. In the United States of America, for example, large numbers of Americans attend religious services on a weekly basis. Institutions of faith, be they church, synagogue, temple, mosque, or free thought society for those who follow the atheist or agnostic route. All of those organizations can be sources of political knowledge, can be influential, and so we have to really consider them as important agents of political socialization. Another very important source of political knowledge and a powerful agent of political socialization is, of course, the mass media, be it a newspaper, a radio program, or television, and that includes broadcast TV, as well as 24-hour cable news networks. The mass media is an intense, very heavily saturated source of political knowledge. There are different schools of thought as to whether the increased development of the mass media is good or bad for political socialization. On one hand, in an age of mass media, information from various sources, one can obtain different types of political information, political viewpoints from all over. On the other hand, it also makes narrow casting possible, the deliberate selection of news media that reinforces viewpoints someone already has. Nevertheless, mass media is an important agent of political socialization. Very few of us actually experience the political process outside of traditional voting. Mass media becomes the next source for political information, something to keep in mind going forward. And this one overlaps with the media as well, but culture. Think of the various contemporary cultural icons, their songs, the lyrics in the songs, what they say, the speeches they give at award ceremonies, from books to musicians to artists to poets. Think also of the influence they may have, especially if you are a follower of a cultural icon such as Beyonce or Oprah Winfrey, or a talented athlete like LeBron James, or for those of us who are a little older, Michael Jordan. All of these individuals, all of these cultural icons have influence as well, going all the way back to children's authors like Dr. Seuss, whose characters are featured here. And I'm also going to add here comic books, because even in the movies and publications of comic books, sometimes you do find a content that is very political or has a message that is somewhat political. Also an important agent of political socialization. In the 21st century, it's almost hard not to look at some piece of culture and find some sort of political socialization or some sort of political message being delivered. Of course, an event, particularly a dramatic one, can also act as an agent of political socialization. For me, one of the most monumental events in my lifetime was the September 11th tragedy, the attacks on the World Trade Center, on the Pentagon, and of course, the plane that went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It probably changed the viewpoints of many of you as well, or maybe added to some of your viewpoints. It certainly changed the way our American government addresses the political problem of terrorism. In addition to being a time of terror, it was also a time of eloquence, as many of us came together, political differences aside, and reminded ourselves that we are all Americans. Our author also adds demographic characteristics as an agent of political socialization, sometimes called personal characteristics. By this, we're talking about our sex or gender, our ethnicity, our age, our income level, maybe our type of profession, maybe the education level, our religious affiliation. All of these characteristics may also serve as an agent of political socialization. Our author asks us to look at the 2012 election, and I would ask you to look at the exit polling from the 2016 presidential election in the United States as well. There are some interesting correlations along the lines of race, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, level of income. Now, correlations do not necessarily mean causation. We do have to be careful as political scientists not to actually conclude that someone's race or somebody's sex or somebody's ethnicity actually caused someone to vote for a particular candidate or to vote at all. But the correlations are very high, and it gives us as political scientists certainly pause to consider the importance of demographics as an agent of political socialization. Some of you might say that your demographics are a non-factor in how you vote. Others might answer that they are a heavy factor in how you vote. It's different for each individual participating in a democratic republic. And so, having considered 8 different categories of agents of political socialization, I would pose this question to you. What would your map look like? What are the important agents of political socialization in your life? Is it demographics? Is it the degree of education you have completed? Is it an event that you experienced in your lifetime? Is it something you picked up from a family member or a friend or a community of faith or even college, even this class, even something that I have said? I would be curious to know what your map would look like. And once you do complete it, I'm going to say save it. Keep it in a safe place and come back to it in a couple of years and assess whether you would have the same map. Again, political socialization is a lifelong process. What your map looks like today may not be what it looks like in 5 years, 10 years, maybe even 1 year from now. But either way, I look forward to your submission.